This week, the Institute for Security Studies said that the Public Violence Monitor had recorded more than 250 xenophobic attacks and related incidents in over 8 years. Now, this comes in the wake of alleged xenophobic violence in Diepsloot in Johannesburg, which claimed the life of Zimbabwean national Elvis Nyathi. It's an issue that's received quite a bit of attention over the years, but seems to keep surfacing. For more on what perhaps might be able to be done, we're now joined by Dr Mathole Motshekga, who's the ANC NEC member and chairperson of the Cultural and Religious Affairs Committee. Dr Motshekga is also a historian and the founder of the Kara Heritage Institute. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter, and the listeners.
Dr. Motshekga, in the ANC Today's publication this week, the president is on the front page in conversation, and he says that he's saddened by what he's seeing, this xenophobic sentiment that seems to be coming through, anti-foreigner sentiment that seems to be coming through, and he likened it to the apartheid era. How is that?
I think the president is perfectly right, but we also need to look for the elephant in the room, because the elephant in the room is not the black violence that we see happening. It is the result of the legacy of colonialism and apartheid, which violently dispossessed the people of the SADC region of their land and natural resources and created a triple challenge of poverty, unemployment, and inequalities. Now, our people who are one and the same are now competing for the crumbs from the table of the colonialists, and these crumbs are not enough, and therefore people have got to fight amongst themselves to get as much as they can from these crumbs. So the elephant in the room is that we have not successfully addressed the landlessness, the homelessness, the violent disposition of the natural resources which cause the problems that we have. So these so-called xenophobic attacks are actually the product of this colonialism and imperialism, and these are a wake-up call for us as Africans in the SADC region to address the real problems, which is the legacy of colonialism and apartheid.
All right, let's talk a little bit about that, because some might say, hang on, but South Africa has been democratic since 1994, Zimbabwe has been independent since 1980, Botswana, Zambia, since even before that. So that how long must we point to colonialism for the woes of today?
You see, the struggle of the African people was about political, social, and economic emancipation. Now, all these countries that we are talking about, they achieved political emancipation, but the colonial powers imposed certain property regimes which arrested the social and economic emancipation. So our people are therefore enjoying the right to vote for people into power, but they don't have a social and economic power. And as a result, they have to depend on the crumbs from the table of the former colonialists who continue to enjoy social and political power. So it means, therefore, that the time has come for all of us in the SADC region to say, let's not fight over the crumbs. Let's get together and work out a plan for achieving social and economic emancipation, because that we have not yet achieved.
I've spoken to you a few times before, and one of the things that you've always liked to impress upon us is self-knowledge, self-awareness, knowing who we are. How will that help us in this journey?
That will help us because, as Professor Stanley Samkange, a Zimbabwean philosopher and historian, said, that there is a concept called Hunuism. In the Ndebelers call it Ubuntu, and South African Nguni-speaking people call it Ubuntu, the Sotho call it Wotu, the Swahili call it Utu, the Tsonga call it Wunu, which is that concept gives expression to African humanism and its inherent values of equality, freedom, and justice for all, regardless of class, gender, creed, or country of origin, which means that there's no basis for the people of Southern Africa to discriminate against one another, to see others as foreigners, because we are all belonging to the southern tip of the continent, and we are one people. And what divides us is not our identity, is not our origin, is not our history. It is the legacy of colonialism. So it means that we must recover the knowledge of who are we, where do we come from, and what is our purpose in life, and what is our destiny. And we'll find that our common identity and interest is much more than any other thing, transcends our differences. So let's not focus on the struggle for crumbs from the table of others. Let's focus on social and economic emancipation, and that cannot be achieved without the restitution of the land of Zimbabwe, the land of South Africa, the land of Botswana, Mozambique, Zambia, to the rightful African owners. And land include water, include the natural resources. If we get all those, there will be no base for the triple challenge of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. And therefore, these so-called xenophobic attacks will be immediately eradicated, because they do not reflect who we are as African people. They just reflect the legacy of colonialism and imperialism.
Again, coming back to the ANC Today publication, front page says, "Fight crime, not migrants." Does this suggest that the solution lies in all groups working together, Zimbabweans with South Africans, Basotho with South Africans, and Zambians and Mozambicans?
Yes, because you see, if you look at the people who attack the so-called foreigners, they attack them on the basis that they are responsible for crime. But if you analyze the criminal activities, you will find that there's collaboration between Zimbabweans and South Africans, Mozambicans and South Africans. So you can't single one group and attribute the crime to them. It is a joint venture of our people in this subcontinent. So it means also that in finding the solution, we must have a national forum for dialogue. And I am proposing in the article that we need a national interfaith forum for dialogue and development, so that we must talk about the problems, their origins, and find solutions, but go further to deal with development of the sub-region, because without development, we will keep on fighting amongst ourselves for the scarce resources, and that is unfortunate.
How do you deal with some people might call dysfunctional governments in the region that are causing the migrants to move around? So if one country is not functioning, you'll get economic migrants moving to better opportunities. Wouldn't the solution be for the whole region to help that country that's perhaps struggling?
You see, actually, this thing of migrants is neither here nor there, because these borders that we have not always existed. People worked together, did business together. But because of the colonial boundaries, we have imposed influx control laws, migration laws. All we are saying is that people must be free to move from one country to another to do business, but they must follow the laws of the host countries. But so that that should not be the problem. But all we are saying as well is that we need cultural, social, and economic integration of the SADC region, so that we move towards a commonwealth of this region, so that the more powerful economics in the region should benefit the weaker ones and also empower them, so that the people of this whole region must benefit from one another and must cooperate and must build this commonwealth together. And there should be no compartmentalization which start to force us to see others as foreigners or migrants, because we are one people in one geographical space. We just need to have to develop the rules of working together and making sure that together we eradicate criminality, which criminality is not Zimbabwean or Botswana or Lesotho, is a common problem of all of us who are law-abiding. Let's work together to deal with the criminals and not the so-called migrants, because being a migrant doesn't necessarily mean that you're a criminal.
So what do we do in the short term? Because what you're suggesting requires a mind shift, which may take some time, and sometimes often much easier to do when economies are growing and there's plenty out there. Right now, there's a lot of desperation on the streets, and so it becomes easier to say, my lot in life is because of Joe or because of Michael who's come into this country. How do we help that person who's in a desperate situation right now and he believes it's because of people from other countries?
The ANC Cultural and Religious Affairs Committee and the Southern African Interfaith Council have launched what we call the National Interfaith Forum for Dialogue and Development. We meet at the Central Methodist Church in Johannesburg. So we are also working with the African diaspora in the country. So we are going to identify all law-abiding nationals from other SADC countries and sit together and identify the problems, not identify other nationals and blame them for crime. Together with all of these people, identify challenges and then also bring on board the relevant government departments like home affairs, and say, these are the problems we're identifying, these are the solutions we are identifying, and we would like to extend this dialogue to the religious bodies in the SADC regions, so that religious bodies, as they did in the run-up to the transition in South Africa, should play a role in dispute resolution, in finding solutions. And we think that approach will also empower the government, because you can't expect government to be dealing with ills and things like that. Government will deal with the implementation of the laws and so on. So civil society, especially the interfaith movement, should really play a major role. And we have started that process, and we want to appeal to the South African government and the other governments in the SADC region to support this initiative, because we can only find a solution by working together and not working against one another.
Dr. Motshekga, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but thank you very, very much indeed for joining us and perhaps giving us some light in terms of a way forward. And we wish you and your compatriots with this Cultural and Religious Affairs Committee and the Southern African Interfaith Council all the best in the work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter, and the listeners.